Thank you very much for making a date on the marketplace. You're welcome back. Now, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has maintained the rate at which is lent to commercial banks. The Bank of Ghana kept the rate at 17%, citing threats to economic growth and inflation rate. Speaking at the news conference a while ago, Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Ernest Addison, said they are closely monitoring developments on the market and would respond adequately with additional measures to help keep inflation under control.
The committee noted that overall growth in the Ghanaian economy is projected to remain high, although private sector credit growth remains below expectations. There are, however, emerging signs of recovery, evidenced by increased new loan advances and easing credit stance on loans to households, despite the ongoing repair of banks' balance sheets. These, together with positive sentiments by both consumers and businesses, should help spur growth over the medium term. The mid-year review of the 2018 budget signaled strong commitment to fiscal consolidation, as the end-year fiscal target of 4.5% was maintained. In response to the shortfall in revenues during the first half of the year, government has introduced new measures to close revenue gaps in the budget alongside expenditure cutbacks. In assessing the balance of risks, the committee was of the view that although inflation had moved upwards in the recent readings, this came mainly from the effects of increases in administered prices of petroleum and transportation costs. The committee viewed that second-round effects from these relative price changes would not be significant enough to alter the inflation trajectory over the medium term. This would require continued fiscal consolidation together with tight monetary policy to keep inflation within the target band. Given the circumstances, especially with regards to the global outlook, the committee decided to maintain the monetary policy rate at 17%, while closely monitoring developments in the near term. The committee stands ready to take the appropriate policy measures to promptly address any potential threats to the disinflation path.
Let's now take you straight to the premises of the Central Bank, where my colleague George Wiafi, who covered the event this morning, is still there, and we'll get back to him when we get hold of him. Currently, we are off air with him. And let's move on and to other stories. A banking expert has stressed the need for basic management education and training as part of the loan disbursement process. President of Global Investments Bankers Limited, Isaac Kwatin Bedu, identifies bad management practices and outmoded agricultural systems as major challenges to loan repayment, especially among small and medium-scale enterprises and farmers, respectively. Speaking in Kumasi, Mr. Kwatin said he believes higher productivity will translate into fast loan repayments.
Paid a courtesy call at the Mensha Palace, Mr. Bedu says the institution has engaged management experts and agronomists to embark on intensive training for all prospective borrowers.
You see, people fail to pay loans, one, because it's either the interest rate that is very high, or it's because their business are not doing well. If their business are not doing well, sometimes they also even lack basic management of their enterprise or businesses. Even the modern way of agriculture, they may not have it. We are incorporating that into our loan scheme. We are not only going to advance loans, but we're also going to provide education, training to our customers in whatever they are doing in the enterprise or their farming skills, modern way of doing farming. So we're going to recruit agronomics and agriculture, agri students, mostly into the loan aspect of the banking or the farmers that we're going to advance loans to, so that they will appreciate and understand the best way to do farming, to get the best yield to enable them pay their interest.
The team announced the setting up of a rural bank at Akumadan to growing community in the region.
We discovered a gap that we thought we could field, especially towards tomatoes farmers. And Akumadan being a virgin district, we realized that having their own rural bank to support the district and its communities in farming and small-scale industries will bring about development, economic empowerment among women, among the youth, to sort of helping the government, even one district, one factory policy to be achieved, sort of, and also leveraging on the opportunities that comes with it. And therefore, what we're going to do differently is creating more awareness of financial inclusion.
Santehene Otunfo Setu II encouraged the team to help farmers appreciate the importance of banking. Please don't dress to scare them. Let them feel welcome. Reporting for JoyNews, Kwesi Deborah.
All right, so we'd like to send you straight to the central bank premises where the policy rate was announced and changed this morning by the central bank governor. And my colleague George Yafi, who covered the event, is still standing by for some more developments. Good afternoon, George. Welcome to the marketplace.
Well, thank you, Abuaja. I can hear you loud and clear. And if you were talking about what went into the policy rate, well, several reasons was given by the governor of the Bank of Ghana a while ago when he addressed journalists on what actually influenced the decision to hold the rate at 17%. The concern was about threats to economic growth as well as inflation rate. Now, in the mid-year review, there were some measures that were announced, and the governor wanted to be very careful and to ensure that they use this policy rate as a tool to contain the amount of money in circulation, i.e. with respect to the inflation rate. And that is why the rate was held at 17%. Yafe.
Now, what else has the governor been saying with regards to this rate?
Well, he spoke about the fact that they need to monitor events very well, and therefore they are continuously monitoring things that are happening, and as and when it matters, they will come in with some additional measures to ensure that it doesn't really become a threat to economic growth in terms of what they are expecting. The argument that the transport fares effects are still yet to have an impact on the economy, and therefore they want to ensure that whatever that they do, all these things are well placed and doesn't have that serious impact on the economy with respect to inflation rate.
Now, did he use the opportunity to make any comments on the current situation about Midland savings and loans?
Well, before I even come to that one as well, and encourage Mate is that with us here, he's from Data Bank, and to share his thought basically on first the issue about the monetary policy rate, the decision to hold the rate and its impact on the economy as well. Courage, thank you so much for joining us on the marketplace. What do you make of the Bank of Ghana decision or the monetary policy committee to hold the rate at 17.5%?
I think it was the most optimal thing to do, given the evolution of risk during the second quarter of this year, where we saw some offshore-induced pressure on the local currency because foreign investors had to exit to other markets which are perceived as less risky, and that imposed a lot of currency pressure for us. And then also you look at the fact that since the last MPC meeting, we've had 2 data point increase in headline inflation to 10% from 9.6% in April. Then last week, we're privy to the new tax measures that were implemented. It looks almost certain that there will be a first round effect on general price levels. We are not so sure about the second round effect, but to the extent that there is likely first round effects to general price level, the central bank or the MPC needed to be very cautious to assess the inflation outlook, and then they decided to maintain it at 17% because it gives them enough time to then assess the outlook between now and September to see what the impact will be to prices.
The Bank of Ghana says that that is the rate at which they lend to commercial banks as well. Some have also argued the real impact of this development on the market. Bank of Ghana has continuously dropped the monetary policy rate, but in terms of real growth in credit to private sector, it hasn't seen that much growth. It's rather on the decline. can we really establish that connection, or whether this rate is getting us the desired result in terms of squeezing or in terms of boosting credit to the private sector?
Well, when you look at the data, you notice that we are not in normal times. And I mean, what I mean by that is that, you see, under normal circumstances, you expect that when you lower your policy rate, given a certain limited transmission lag, you should start seeing the impact almost aggressively by now. But we still haven't seen that substantial. There's been some marginal, improvement, but we've not seen that substantial in the credit improvement in the credit conditions. And this is mainly because of the asset quality, meaning the high NPLs. Today we have the NPLs above 22%, 22.6%. This is even an improvement from 23.4% in April, and this is even higher than a year ago. So given these conditions and the fact that there are other reforms taking place within the banking sector, corporate governance issues, as well as recapitalization. And these recapitalization efforts, banks are careful not to undermine their recapitalization efforts through giving out expensive and risky loans again. So you can see that the framework and the environment is not yet conducive for aggressive improvement in loan book. That's why we are not seeing. But I think by the time we cross this year, when we know that the recapitalization and the reforms may have been exited, then we should see the response.
Correct. Before I also let you go, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Bank of Ghana's response about the Ghana city. We've got the understanding about the external threat. But in terms of the question that was asked about whether they appreciate the challenge and whether the approach should change, we didn't get much from the governor.
Well, I think personally the question was really informed, and for me, I think that it's a clear question that we may want to take a second look at, because from the nominal level, you saw such amount of depreciation in the nominal exchange rate, but when you do the real effective exchange rate, trade weighted on the basis of fundamentals, exports, imports, it showed that the exchange rate actually has not deviated much when you look at it in terms of trade, that is in terms of fundamentals. Now, when we started seeing this new administration and they are reporting of the summary of economic and financial data, one of the lines they've introduced has been very helpful, introducing net versus gross reserves, introducing some efficiency indicators in the banking sector. And I felt like, okay, this is a very good question. If we can find a way of also reporting what is happening fundamentally to the currency beyond the nominal depreciation, then it could also give so much confidence in the currency.
So you heard Courage Mate sharing his thought on the Bank of Ghana decision to keep the rate at 17%. Well, the other issues in the sector you spoke about, the status of the recapitalization of commercial banks. The governor, in response to a question posed by Joy Business, said that there are 6 commercial banks that have actually met the minimum capital requirement. 2 are on their way. If you do the extrapolations and forecasts, it's likely that 15 commercial banks should by December meet the minimum capital requirement. And so you can do your own calculations or do your own extrapolations. What should we expect?
What about the Midland situation?
2019, which of the commercial banks?
The Midland savings and loan situation, what did you say?
The Midland issue, well, the governor spoke about the fact that there are ongoing reforms in that area in terms of the savings and loans, and he believes that very, very soon those reforms would actually help address all the concerns that we've raised about capacity, human resource, as well as capital requirement for these savings and loans. It is said, or it is believed, that they're having some liquidity issues, and that is why we're seeing all these things. And the governor believes that some of these things that are taking place, even right now, would actually address those problems. Yafe.
Thank you very much, George Yafe, reporting live from the central bank premises, where he updated us on the current situation, where the Bank of Ghana's Monetary Policy Committee has maintained the policy rate at 17%. Let's still stay within the banking industry. The need for rural banks to increase or to meet the minimum capital requirement has compelled many players in the industry to explore various alternatives to meet it. Management of Bosomtwi Rural Bank, for instance, has increased its dividend by 42% in a bid to increase share acquisition. The move is meant to whet up interest in share acquisition by both prospective buyers and current shareholders to increase its capital base. This was revealed at the bank's 28th annual general meeting at the Kuntanase in the Ashanti region, where Prince Apia reports.
At the 28th annual general meeting of Bosomtwi Rural Bank, dividend payment was announced to have increased by 42% from 600,715 Ghana cedis in 2016 to 944,695 Ghana cedis as of last year. This means for a share price of 10 pesos, shareholders are getting 4 pesos return on it. Deposits also increased by 19.5%. Profits after tax also increased by 23.9%. Chief Executive Officer Francis Eje Bequin says the bank is putting in strategic policies, though the bank has exceeded the Bank of Ghana's minimum capital requirement mandate.
Currently, the Bank of Ghana minimum capital requirement is 1 million Ghana cedis. At the moment, Bosomtwe Rural Bank is doing about 3.5 million Ghana cedis. We are still putting measures in place to go beyond the limit so that we will stay ahead of Bank of Ghana. In case there's any increase in future, we will stay ahead of Bank of Ghana minimum requirement. And we are doing this by paying a higher dividend to entice the existing shareholders. And we are also putting in place share mobilization exercise. In spite of the biting competition and macroeconomic challenges raised by economic factors or forces, Bosomtwe Rural Bank was able to withstand the storm and pay a higher dividend to its shareholders.
The bank was able to review some of its lending rates on traditional loan products to make them more flexible and attractive to customers. The performance of the bank in 2016 increased the demand for its shares, making potential investors realize reasonable value for money they invested. Benjamin Osei-Boateng is vice chairman of the bank.
We are not waiting for the regulator to increase the share before we get ourselves readiness. We know the benefits we derive if people acquire our share. We can only expand our branches without dipping our hands into the deposited funds, and we can only expand through the share capital. That's the only way we can make expansion. So we're doing that through advertising and by way of giving them appreciable dividend. Obviously they will buy more. As we talk, we have the information that the share is getting to 3 million because when we decided to increase the price per share, people rushed and acquired more. So we are well funded and we can grow.
Prince Apia reporting.
Moving on to one of our top stories today, and Midland Savings and Loans has closed its operations for 2 days following the assault on a female customer by a policeman at the Shashi branch. The Bank of Ghana is also set to investigate the savings and loans on liquidity issues. Now, my colleague Ebenezer Sabote has been following up on this particular development. He's joined me in the studio. But before then, let's take a listen to some of the customers of Midland.
I came along with my withdrawal slip, which is their checkbook, to clear my money, all my money. Yeah.
And approximately how much do you have in it? That if you are clearing, we say you are taking, or how much are we expecting that you are taking out from your account?
Taking close to 3,000. Yeah, close to 3,000.
As you can see, there's this lady here who is, in tears because the situation has caused her a lot. Let's try and see if we can engage her a bit and know what the situation is.
All right, so like I said, Ebenezer has been on the field. He's right here in the studio to give us current updates. Ebenezer, welcome to Market, please.
Thank you.
Now, what exactly have they been saying, and have you been able to speak with any of the management staff of Midland?
Okay, before I go to that, I think the closure or the seizure of operations is just for today and not 2 days.
Not 2 days.
Yes.
Okay.
So they did promise that they'll be opening for businesses tomorrow. Okay. When we got to the premises of Midland Savings and Loans, as usual, you know, Ghana here, when an issue breaks, the way, especially when it has to do with the financial sector, people try to move in to get their withdrawals and all that.
Panic withdrawals.
Yes, panic withdrawals, or we may term as bank run, economic term. Okay. So we got there and they were there. They keep coming, and they keep coming. And then
they keep coming. Are they in hundreds or in the thousands?
In hundreds. How can you describe in hundreds. Okay. In hundreds. If you know the area very well, it's not a very bigger place, so you can imagine the kind of people it will be able to accommodate. And then the MD,
he assured us that they will be speaking with us. But unfortunately, he didn't speak, but he delegated one of his officials, who is the head of customer relations, to speak with us. And he assured that tomorrow they will be opening the bank for business. He also assured the customers that their funds are safe, and whatever the situation is, they apologize to the people of Ghana, customers of the bank, and the entire banking fraternity. So it wasn't a deliberate issue, that it wasn't a deliberate act by the bank, but it was just an accident, and that they are sure that whatever situation that it is, they will be able to correct the measure.
What about Bank of Ghana's decision to investigate the liquidity challenges of Midland?
Okay, so let me say the investigations has begun. I spoke with the executive secretary of the Ghana Association of Savings and Loans Company, who indicated to me that the head of operations at Midland and Savings and Loans is currently meeting the managers of the Bank of Ghana as at the time we're having engagement. I'm yet to get the feedback of whatever engagement they have, but I can confidently confirm to you that investigations have begun. As to whatever is coming up, we will not be able to say it now. But the Association of Ghana Savings and Loans guy also did indicate to me that there may be sanctions to the bank if it found out that they have been a breach of protocol or whatever situation that happened to the customer. So there will be a sanction to the bank and the customers, the staff of the bank at the moment.
Now, finally, before you go, what about compensation packages for the victim? The lady in question who was assaulted.
Exactly, they promised a compensation package to the person, but they've not actually opened, they've not mentioned whether it's going to be a house, car, or an amount of money. But he did mention that they were going to compensate the lady, efficiently.
Now, looking forward, do you think it's going to affect, that particular company in any way, or even the whole industry?
Of course, it is going to affect that company and then also that industry, because if you remember very well, in the morning when I engaged the microfinance savings and loans executive secretary, he was so, there are so many fears that confidence in the system will come down, because you and I knows that whenever the financial industry has such issues, we can go back to the DKMs and all that. It affected, deposits, mobilization and all that. So yes, it is going to have a negative effect on the company and then also the savings and loans industry in Ghana. Not only that, but I think some of the banks will also be affected. I saw some investment bankers over there which suggest that they may have some businesses with the savings and loans company. And if you don't take time, this will also be affected. So
thank you very much, Ebenezer Sabuti. My colleague, Ebenezer Sabuti, brings us up to speed with developments after the Midland Savings and Loans Saga, where a woman was assaulted by a policeman and other staff of the company. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. Thank you very much for staying with us. Good afternoon.